This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with HPE Networking Instant On. Today's host is O'Hara Wagner. She is an Instant On Business Development Manager, and along with her today is also David Nguyen, who is Instant On Category Manager. So thank you both for being here. O'Hara, I'm finished for now. Please go ahead and take it on over.
All right. Thank you so much, Julie. Hello, and thank you for being here. My name is O'Hara Wagner, Instant On Business Development Manager, as Julie said, for the US. David and I will kind of tag team today's presentation, but really this is meant to serve as a kind of reintroduction to the product line, answer any questions you might have on product placement within the portfolio, and of course, we'll always have a Q&A session at the end. So if you have questions about topics we do cover or that we don't cover on today's webinar, please ask them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get an answer to you. So I guess I just want to start out by just talking about some of the small business challenges that Instant On was purpose built to address. All right, the three that always come to mind are budget constraints, security concerns, and running a network with limited IT resources. So Instant On really does all three of these things at a very competitive price point. Why HPE Networking Instant On? We usually boil our value proposition down to these 5 points that you see on the slide in front of you, but the product is extremely simple. You can set up through the free mobile app or the cloud-based portal in a matter of touches. And you have single pane of glass management for all of your Instant On devices. So that includes the APs, the switches, and the gateways if you have them deployed. Security is built in and it's enterprise grade. So you can trust that your network is secure or your customer's network is secure. We do have all of our Wi-Fi 6 access points certified by the Wi-Fi Alliance. So what this means is that we, put our devices through rigorous testing with the Wi-Fi Alliance to ensure the highest standards of performance and interoperability with Wi-Fi 6 devices. So this is just something a little extra that we do to give you assurance of top performance from the Instant On product line. And another one is no hidden fees. So no licensing or subscriptions whatsoever with Instant On. You pay for the product up front. If you want, there is extended warranty options, but all you have to pay for is the product out of the box, and that's it. So again, the management is completely free. There are no hidden fees that will pop up at you there. Lastly, you're purchasing a product from a trusted vendor. So HPE Networking, formerly known as Aruba Networks, and then Aruba, a Hewlett Packard company, has been doing this for over 20 years. We're number 2 in networking share worldwide, and the Instant On product line really is an iteration of the same product that's deployed at Disney, Home Depot, and other very large enterprise customers. So you get the benefit of that enterprise grade product at an SMB price point. This is just a visual, but again, single pane of glass management, unified management for all of your Instant On devices. So whether you deploy multiple switches, access points, or secure gateways on a network, the management is very simple, very intuitive, whether from the web portal or the mobile app on your phone. I'm going to hand it over to my peer David really quick just to go over our secure gateways. These are our most recently launched products. And I like for him to add his unique perspective on where these should and should not be positioned. Over to you, David.
All right, thanks, O'Hara. So we've got two SKUs here for our secure gateways. We've got an entry-level version, which is the SG1004, and we also have kind of a mid-entry level product, the SG2505P. The main differences between the two is that one is purely a gigabit WAN router, while the other higher end version has a 2.5G port. So if you've got a more robust kind of service provider connection coming in, then you can use this particular one to make sure you utilize all the bandwidth, especially if it's a service plan that's 1 gig or higher. We usually recommend that you go with a 2.5G gateway. Otherwise, if it's 900 megs or less in terms of your service provider connection, then usually the SG1004 will be enough, and you'll save a little bit of money there. What's also great about these gateways is that they support VPN, they support dual WAN. They obviously have firewalls because that's what gateways do. So all of that extra security is great for a gateway. And it also has IDS and IPS. which is signature based, and also kind of in line with how Instant On works. There's no subscription fees for using that particular service, so it's automatically updated by signatures. So you simply have to just enable it. And the gateways have extra hardware in them to make sure that they accelerate the IPS IDS without impacting the performance of the gateway too much. We have other competitors in this space. When you start enabling all the features, including VPN and IDS, IPS, and so on and so forth, the performance starts to go down on the throughput. And that's not the case for this particular product. We have extra hardware in there that helps accelerate all of that, which is nice. In terms of positioning, we've really, at least at the start, and as O'Hara mentioned, we just started, we just released these gateways recently. We want to basically cater to existing Instant On deployments. So that's kind of our first use case for these particular products. So if you've got a situation where you're running Instant On already, like you have the access point, you have switch, but you don't have a gateway per se, maybe you're using a consumer gateway, or you're using whatever the service provider provided for you as kind of like the gateway that came with the service. This is a really good way to really step up your security by adding one of these gateways instead, because you're adding visibility right into your single pane of glass, because you're already managing your access points and your switches, and you're keeping it within all the same ecosystem. And at the same time, these gateways really have been engineered with a mindset of security first, where when you get to a consumer router or a prosumer router, they usually try to advertise like the fastest speeds first, and security is kind of second on their mind. But security is on the top of mind when we created these products. So they've got a lot of hardware in there that consumer routers normally don't have. They have TPM chips that secure the bootloader, so make sure that the gateways don't get hacked and the code doesn't get hacked on the devices itself. It's a lot of things. The way that we've engineered these products, you're not going to be able to very easily see on a data sheet that it's more secure, but it definitely is a higher level of security compared to those other devices. So that's kind of the positioning for these two gateways. I would say that if you're going head to head against an existing kind of SMB type gateway, there might be more flexibility in the features that it has. And if that's the case, if that's what you're used to, then you can continue to use those other vendors for those gateways. When it comes to like a next gen firewall, we absolutely do not compete, right? Because next gen firewalls have very high end security features, but then they also kind of require you to subscribe to those security features, right? So if you have requirements for a next gen firewall, then again, stick with that, it's fine. But in the case that you have a deployment that has a simple or average use case, and they don't have anything for the gateway in particular, then this is a great step up in security. And one last thing I'll mention, I don't know if you've all heard of the FCC ruling where they've banned specific companies from selling routers, right? That's a bit heavy-handed, but the real reasoning behind that is, again, when you're deploying a router in your network, whether it's a business or even residential, you really want to make sure that you've got that higher security posture, and these gateways do give that to you.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Moving on to our wireless access points. This is the portfolio as it stands today. If you've joined our webinars before with Microcom, you've seen this slide, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I will call out our top movers. So the AP22 and the AP25, both indoor access points over on the left-hand side, are far and away our top moving access points, namely the AP25, which is a 4x4 Wi-Fi 6 AP. We've got our desktop or wall mounted AP, the AP22D, and this one is unique in that it does have PoE outports. So it's great for like a boutique hotel or desktop in a small business where you need to power maybe a printer or a VoIP phone. And then lastly, we have our outdoor access point, which is IP67 rated. So this is completely weatherproof, dustproof. It's extremely resilient. It's enterprise grade. So please keep in mind that that is part of our portfolio and it's available to you today. Then we have our wired portfolio. So we have the 1430 unmanaged switches, which are not a huge, huge part of what we do. Our bread and butter are really the 1930 switches right here. So our 8-port PoE, 24 and 48-port PoE 1930 switches are definitely our most popular and the most feature-rich versus their price positioning. So you really get a lot of bang for your buck with the 1930s. We do have the 1960s, which are stackable up to 4, so they can really help you if you're moving into, let's say, like an entry-level enterprise opportunity. And again, Instant On management, the cloud management is totally free, no licensing, no subscriptions. We have made some enhancements lately as it relates to site health and reporting. So if you have questions about that, please put them in the chat and we'd love to talk to you about those today. This was brief, but we will share these slides with Julie so that you can have them after the call. And our contact information is on the slide should you have any questions about opportunities where Instant On may be a good fit. Julie, that concludes our presentation. Back over to you.
Thank you so much, O'Hara and David. I greatly appreciate that. I do have audience questions for you. Let me start with the first one. Here we go. First question for you guys. What are the most popular Instant On products right now and why?
David, would you like to take that one?
Oh yeah, I can take that. Yeah, so as Hera mentioned, the AP22 from the wireless side, the AP22 and the AP25 are the most popular. I would say the AP22 is the most cost-effective, bang for your buck, and it's been a long-running hot seller for us. It's one of the first access points in the Wi-Fi 6 portfolio that we started out with. And then AP25 is gaining a lot of steam because it's basically the same, but it's a 4x4 antenna instead of a 2x2 antenna. So you're going to get a lot more total Wi-Fi bandwidth. So think more high density, more high client density versus the AP22. So that one is also gaining a lot of traction because of the higher Wi-Fi capacity. The AP32 actually has gained some steam as well. It's our Wi-Fi 6E access point. So right now we don't have a Wi-Fi 7 access point in the portfolio. We do have it on the roadmap. One of the pros and cons about being part of an enterprise class company, we get to leverage their designs, but at the same time, when those designs come down to Instant On, by the time they come down to Instant On, there's a bit of lag there because we have to wait for it to come out on the enterprise side first, right? For them to finalize the designs. So we do have Wi-Fi 7 on the roadmap, but the closest thing that you're going to get to that now in our current portfolio is the AP32, which is Wi-Fi 6E, and it's a 2x2. So if you kind of have that requirement where you've got devices that are either 6E or 7, and you want to have that same performance connection to the access point, then AP32. Otherwise, if you're dealing with just Wi-Fi 6 clients, or maybe you're dealing with an environment that has a mixed type of clients, like even Wi-Fi 5, then the best bang per buck will be just our Wi-Fi 6 portfolio, which will be the AP22 or the AP25. As far as switches go, again, O'Hara mentioned this, 1930s is our best bang per buck. With the 1930s, you're going to get 10 gig uplinks, which will allow you to create really high-speed connections between the switches if you need to. And in terms of features, it's just the best value. You really don't need to go up into a 1960 unless you've got a really high-density PoE device install, because there is a 600-watt version of a PoE switch on the 1960 side, whereas on the 1930 side, it's only 370 watts. So if you have that particular type of use case, then you can go up to a 1960. We really don't do anything with advanced routing, right? So again, it's meant to be for small SMB, 500 seats or less. So if you do need something that has advanced routing features, then we've got a complete portfolio of entry-level enterprise and enterprise products. on the switching side. But if that's not the case, then yeah, the 1960s is really as far as high up as you go on our switching stack. So those are the kind of the main sellers. The 1930s for our switching, and then for Wi-Fi, it's the AP22 and AP25.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that, David. Next question here for both of you. Here we go. What networking trends should SMB watch closely over the next, say, 3 years?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I know AI is on top of mind for everybody. And I think for small to medium-sized businesses, you're not necessarily going to have access to local compute, right? So I think being connected to the internet, being connected to the cloud is probably going to be your first brush with AI, whether it's with ChatGPT or any of these other services that connect over the cloud. But I think slowly but surely, compute will start to integrate into the local networks. And in that case, it won't just be instant on that you're worrying about for the networking, although the networking will be important to keep all those devices connected. You may start seeing more servers and more compute resources in the local network, so you can do things locally, so you don't have to go over the cloud. But at least initially, for a lot of small businesses, it's going to start with using services like ChatGPT. So networking to the cloud is very important.
Thank you much for that, David. I'm going to go on to our next question. How does your company gather customer feedback for Instant On improvements?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, O'Hara and I take feedback all day, every day, and we pipe that back to our product line management team. There's also a community webpage that we have that a lot of people post on, and they also help each other out if they have issues with the product. So that's also quite nice. So really, those two methods. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So if there's a comment on a particular post or something that I've said about our products and you want to chime in, then you can always do that there as well. So yeah, we have a lot of avenues for feedback, but we always love to get direct feedback so we can pipe that back to our product line management team. And these Q&As, like for these webinars, are a great way to get feedback.
Great. Thank you for that, David. And you mentioned the community. Can we go to your website to find, we can find all that there, right?
Yeah, I don't know the link off the top of my head, O'Hara. I don't know if you know, but we can always get that to everyone. But it's pretty easy to find. It's basically just on our website.
No problem then. Thank you so much for that. Okay, terrific. Next question. How do you see Wi-Fi 7 changing the SMB market?
There's always big improvements with Wi-Fi whenever you go to the next generation, right? It was a huge improvement from 5 to 6 and 6 to 7. So there's always improvements there, but the biggest issue is getting the clients to catch up, right? I mean, I still have a wireless printer that's running on Wi-Fi 4, right? Because some of these legacy devices, they really don't see, especially for a printer that's not high bandwidth, they really don't see the need to move on to the latest and greatest, even though it's in the best interest of the market, honestly. I think that's the biggest challenge. If you have to deal with deploying in a home or in a business where you still have to deal with those legacy client devices, then being on the latest and greatest is good if you can, but it's not critical, right? Because you're not going to get all the benefits out of it unless you can really control your environment. So I think when it comes to Wi-Fi 7 specifically, if you're deploying in a corporate kind of business use case where you're the IT admin and you can basically change all of the devices over to Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 6E at least, and make sure you're getting that benefit of the extra latency or the lower latency and the extra speed, then that's great. But otherwise, if you're dealing with a more basic, simple, or average use case where you can't necessarily control that environment and you may be dealing with legacy wireless devices, I think going with something that's more established, more tested, like Wi-Fi 6 is actually better in that sense. Because some of the compatibility issues that you may come across, being on the latest and greatest might not be worth it for the use case that you're doing. So it really just depends on your use case.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Last question here for you guys. The question is, how important is cloud management becoming for small businesses? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think everything has just been moving to the cloud, and you see a great example of it with AI, right? That's kind of really the most accessible way that you can get access to compute and to AI right now without running your own data center. So I think it's really really important.
Thank you so much for answering all of those questions for us today. And also, thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if you have any further questions, of course, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown today, please remember that this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so we could all view it again. O'Hara, I'm going to jump in one last time. If you have any closing comments, we would love to hear from you.
I just want to say thank you again to everyone for joining. And like I said earlier, please reach out to David and myself if you have any opportunities that we can help qualify or provide support on now or in the future.
Terrific. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you being with Microcom today, and I'll reach out to see if we can do this again, perhaps in the fall. I would look forward to that. So everybody have a fantastic day.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for having us.
You bet. Bye-bye now.